Okay, so the second tool that I'm going to be exampling for you is GTmetrix, where we can analyze the performance of our site. So, same as it is with Pingdom, we have a field here in which we enter our URL to be tested, and we test it. This is tested from somewhere in Canada, Montreal, I believe. If you sign up for an account, you actually get other different options for your testing location. All right, we have our results, and much as it is with Pingdom, we have our grades here, whether or not we're following best practices. Here, GTmetrix makes use of Google's page speed guidelines as well as YSlow, Yahoo's guidelines, and we can see how they're coming to our whatever grade that we receive here in the detail. You can see page speed and page speed, and the specific page speed recommendations, and then how we scored on those all the way down. What I like about GTmetrix is that it gives you a prioritization here from low to mid to high. You see medium down here, high up here. You can click on each of these individual recommendations and see, for example, specify image dimensions, the specific images here that are not conforming with the rule, thereby making it a B as opposed to an A. Same thing with YSlow's guidelines, specific recommendations. Whether or not you're serving from cookie-free domains, whether or not you're using expires headers, things of that nature. And then obviously your grade. Also, like Pingdom, and as it is with all of these tools, we have a timeline provided. You can get a larger view. And also, like Pingdom, on the timeline, this basic, you can hover over these and see the detail of how long for this particular resource or asset X, Y, or Z took. And here we have, as you can see, DNS lookup time, things of that nature, how long it took to connect, send, how long the waiting was, and then how long the reception was. And also, as it is with Pingdom, you click on this little thing here and you get your headers, both request and response. So some people will prefer, again, it's an aesthetic choice by and large. Some people do prefer GTmetrix over Pingdom or Pingdom over GTmetrix. What we're concerned with at the moment, though, is whether or not this information we're getting is accurate. A lot of the information is as accurate as we're going to get from Pingdom. Obviously, the grades we either are or are not conforming to the page speed guidelines and getting the grade that we're getting. Also, this little arrow is representative. I want to point this out real quick. The relative score. The average page speed grade of all of the websites tested on GTmetrix is an 80. So again, you're getting a relative indicator of just how well you're doing. So if the excuse me, if the average grade is 80 and you're getting a 99%, well, you're doing fantastic. And then the same relative score is indicated for YSlow, which is tends to be significantly less, as you can see, than Google on average. Well, not significantly. A percentage point. It's big enough. We're getting closer to accurate total page load times with GTmetrix, but there is a rather subtle payoff in that the total page size tends to be inaccurate and therefore synthetic. We're loading it's over 7 megabytes, I believe, video at the end of at the bottom below the fold of our home page, which in our tests on our own site and also the hundreds of other tests that we've made on other properties, things like that, WebP and MP4 videos tend to not register on this tool for some reason. I have absolutely no idea why. The total number of requests also tends to be haphazard. Sometimes it adds some, and sometimes it subtracts some. But at any rate, you are getting closer here to a page load, accurate page load time. In other words, how long it took to get from here, the initial HTTP request, to the last HTTP request, down to our analytics here in this example. That said, what we are missing is an indicator of, remember I talked about the critical render path. We have no idea, or it's not easily extracted anyway, from this timeline, how long it actually took for the initial rendering of anything on our page, how quickly that was, and what a real user would actually experience as far as their perception of the load time of our page. Just think of it from your own perspective. When you visit a website, you could care less whether or not it took 1 millisecond or 30 seconds for their analytics to load. It is in no way contributes, that metric in no way contributes or takes away from your user experience. It's the same with pretty much anything below the fold. It really doesn't matter. What we are primarily concerned with is that critical render path, everything above the fold, and how quickly our site's users are able to see and experience and interact with that content. And we're not getting that from GTmetrix. Everything that we're getting is valuable, and we are closer to what an actual user would experience as far as our total page load time. But it's not giving us the critical information that we need to know regarding what the user or a visitor to our website is going to experience on an initial page load, or upon repeat page loads, or through navigating our site, information such as that. So what is the best way then to use GTmetrix? Well, in our opinion, it is best used as a best practices tool. Are you or are you not adhering to best practices? Google PageSpeed best practices and Yahoo's YSlow best practices. These are all very accurate. You either are or are not conforming to these things, and therefore getting the grades that you are. Same thing with YSlow. You either are or are not reducing DNS lookups. You either are or are not using gzip compression. So, also, again, as it was with Pingdom, an aesthetic preference. If this is better suited to how your eyeballs work, and it's easier for you to take in and absorb this information as far as page weights and your resources, and again, headers, which we again will be going over in headers optimization, then use it in that fashion, or in whatever fashion you see fit. However, bear in mind that while you are getting a more accurate representation than you are with Pingdom of the total page load time, the time from your first HTTP request to the last, it's still not giving you everything that you really need to know whether or not that critical render path is being addressed, everything that is above the fold, and how quickly that your site's user is experiencing content on their screen.